Hello students, this is our lecture on exception handling in Java. Exception handling is one of the very important concept in programming language that allows us to continue the execution of our program with the help of which or with the help of exception handling we can execute the instruction that we have written in our program, and if there is anything wrong it will not disrupt the execution of remaining instruction in our program. So we'll discuss this content under this chapter. So these are the list of content that we have under this chapter, and out of this we are going to cover a few of them. This lecture covers only about basic things about the fundamentals of exception handling, syntax and all, examples, some of the exception types, okay, and we will talk about the syntax of try-catch block, multiple catch block, and the user defined function. The remaining topic will be discussed in the next subsequent lecture. So what is error? Okay, so what is an error? So errors are something that makes program go wrong. Okay? Errors are something that makes program go wrong. Now go wrong in the sense that the program may give you either an incorrect output or terminate the program abnormally. Okay, terminate the program abnormally. I repeat, what is an error? An error is something wrong that exists in the program that you have written it, and that makes the program go wrong. Now go wrong means either it will give you an incorrect output or the program gets terminated abnormally. For example, suppose okay, suppose there is a class called demo, okay, and inside the class you have got PSVM, public static void main, and inside we have a string args, which I'm not going to write it, and inside the PSVM we have got main executable instructions like int a comma a equals to 10, okay, and b equals to 5, b equals to 5, and c equals to 6. So these are the three variables that we have, okay, that we have declared. Now I'll write a very simple statement that will calculate x. So int x equals to a divided by b minus c, right? A divided by b minus c, and you'll have the display of x, okay. So you are trying to evaluate some formula, that is this, okay, with some values of a, b and c respectively, with 10, 5 and 6 into the variable a, b and c respectively. So when the computer compiles this program, when the computer compiles this program, it will compile it by giving the command javac, okay, demo.java. I am assuming that the name of the program is saved in the demo.java. Okay. Now when this statement gets executed, or when this command gets executed, the compiler will generate a class file, name is demo.class, okay. Because demo.class, why name of the class is demo? Because it is the main class which contains the main program. Now you give the executable instruction. So you give the executable instruction java demo, name of the class. Now once you give this instruction, okay, once you give this instruction, it will give you an error, and name of the error is like something like arithmetic exception. So some wrong thing had happened during the execution, okay. So during the execution, some wrong thing related to arithmetic operation has been encountered that leads to generation of this message, and it will not execute this SOP instruction. So when an exception is encountered by the computer system, okay, the remaining code will not get executed. For example, in this case, our exception has been encountered in this area because a divided by b minus c, okay. I'm assuming that the value of c is 5, okay. The value of c is 5. So I'm assuming the value of c is 5. So now when the value of a is 10, b is 5 and c is 5, then this statement will lead to divide by 0 situation, and anything divided by 0 is something indefinite and is kind of an arithmetic problem or error, and due to this SOP statement will not get executed. So this kind of error is known as a runtime error. Okay. Now suppose instead of this you have missed the semicolon. You have missed the semicolon, right? You have missed the semicolon. You have forgotten to specify the semicolon, and this kind of error is known as a compile time error, syntax error or compile time error. So the error detected during the compilation means from .java to class file. Whenever you convert from this .java file to class file, the error encountered in this duration is known as a compile time error, and the error encountered during the execution of the program is known as a runtime error. So there are two different kind of error. One is compile time error and other one is runtime error. So just to brief you what we have discussed. So errors are something that makes program go wrong. Now the program may go wrong in two different directions. Either there may be incorrect output, or the program gets terminated abnormally. Abnormally means the rest of the code will not get executed. Whenever an error is encountered, there itself the program starts terminating. Okay, the rest of the instruction from that statement onwards will not get executed. That kind of error is known as compile time error and lead to abnormal termination of the program. So there are two different kind of error. Compile time error, generally called as syntax related error, is caught while compiling the program or while transforming the high level program into the machine code. And runtime error are the errors that are encountered during the execution of the program after successfully creation of the class file, and then you give the execution command, and during the execution of the machine code the program gets terminated abnormally. Some of the common examples of the runtime error are like divide by 0, the example that I have shown you just now. It's shown over here also. Okay, the same examples. So you can see in this example, suppose the value of b is 5 and the value of c is 5. So this evaluation of arithmetic expression leads to a divide by 0 situation. Now since it is a divide by 0 situation, so error has been encountered, runtime error has been encountered at this line. So rest of the statement will not get executed and the program terminates abnormally, right? So, the other examples could be like accessing the array element out of bound. You're trying to retrieve the element of an array by specifying some index, but the index is very far from the limit of the array. So these are the basic things about the error, types of error, okay, and most importantly runtime error. So now coming to the point, exception. Since we are our main theme of the chapter is exception handling, so we need to understand what is an exception. Exceptions are basically the runtime errors. Okay, exceptions are basically the runtime errors that exist in the program, and due to the encounterment of the exception, it leads to abnormal termination of the program. So when an exception is encountered, what will happen? The remaining or the rest of the code will not get executed. So for example, in a program there are 4 lines of code, 4 statements. I am assuming there are 4 lines of code in a program. Suppose an error has encountered or an exception has been encountered here somewhere in the step number 2 or statement number 2, then statement number 3 and 4 will not get executed at all, irrespective whether it is correct or not. So this is something like that we don't want during the execution of our program. So due to one statement, due to erroneous in one statement, or due to error in one statement, why other remaining code has to suffer, okay, or why other remaining code should not be executed. It should be executed. So that can be accomplished only when we write down the program in such a way that it handles the exceptions, okay. So if we want to continue the program execution with remaining code, then we should catch the expression thrown by the erroneous statement and display the appropriate message to the users for the corrective actions. So it will be now what is the main objective of studying this exception handling? The main objective of studying this exception handling is to make the normal flow of the program and to make our program robust and very efficient, so that it caters all kind of need, it caters or it handles all different kind of situations based on the input values. So the main advantage of the exception handling is to make our to design our efficient program, so that whenever an error is encountered in a particular statement, it should not have impact on the remaining statement. So basically the main advantage is to maintain the normal flow of the program or the applications. So while writing the Java exception handling programs, we will be using the series of keywords. So most of the 5 keywords that we will be using these 5 keywords to perform the or to write down the exception handling program in Java. So those keywords are try, catch, throw, throws, and finally. So we will see one after another about each of them, okay. So try means if you want to analyze a particular statement. Suppose you are suspicious about statement number 2. Suppose you are suspicious about statement number 2, then you can monitor this statement number 2 by placing this or writing this statement number 2 under try block. So if you want to monitor any statement, you keep it in the try block. Now, when an error is encountered in a statement that you have kept in the try block, I repeat, when an error is or when an exception is encountered, by the statement that you have kept in try block, then what will happen? An object will be created. An object will be created that will have the message of what kind of error it is, and that error is caught using the catch block. So to catch the thrown exception thrown by the try block, okay, and handled rationally. So catch block is used to catch the exception that the try block has encountered. Now throws and throws are related with throwing the exceptions manually, okay. So most of the time in Java everything is done the exception handling can be done automatically also, but if you want to manually throw the exception, that is also possible using the throw and throws keyword. So the throws we will cover it up in next upcoming lecture. And finally keyword are the block. Finally block is the block where you keep the statement that you have to execute, okay, irrespective of exception or not. So mandatory, if you think that, say for example, statement number 3 is mandatory statement in the program, it has to be executed irrespective of the exception or not, then you have to keep such kind of statement in the final block. So statement that must be executed after try block are kept in the finally block. So this is the general syntax of the exception handling program. As discussed already just now, that whichever statement that you want to monitor or analyze, okay, or you're suspicious about it, you keep that statement under the try block, okay. And when this statement generates encounters exception, when this statement encounters exception, then an object is created, okay, an object is thrown or created. After creation it will be thrown. So with the help of the exception object creator, the exception will be created, that highlights what kind of exception that it has encountered, and that will be thrown and will be caught in the catch block, and the catch block will handle this kind of exception by displaying the proper message to the user. So this is all about the exception, basic concept of the try catch block, which is a pictorial representation. Okay, so we'll see go further for with the help of the example. Suppose you are suspicious about a particular statement that in the program, and that suspicious statement is something like this: int x equals to a divided by b minus c. You're suspicious about this statement because you might have it might have came into your mind that okay, b and c, in this execution of this statement totally depends on the proper execution of this statement totally depends on the value of b and c, because if the value of b and c is same, then it will generate a runtime error, or it will encounter exception. So if you're suspicious about such kind of a statement, you keep such kind of a statement in the try block, try block. So now I'm assuming that this is b and c have the value of 5 and 5. Now if the value of b and c is 5 and 5, right, then it will generate an error, and that error has to be caught into the catch block. Okay, now there are a lot of exceptions that we can have it. So I'll write the generalized one, exception E. Okay, then you can have some statement like SOP statement, SOP statement, and you display E. Okay, or E dot get. Okay, you'll be able to understand what is get message later on. So this is very simple demonstration of try catch block. So if B and C encounters some problem in the try block, an object is created, object will be thrown in the catch block, so that object is E. Now with the help of this object, you will invoke the proper message from proper location, and the user will be notified accordingly, right? So this is all about the example of try catch block. So instead of e.get message, you can have your own statement also, like as shown over here, divide by 0 error. Okay, so now coming to the point, different types of exception. So these are the not the exhaustive list, these are the some of the common list that we can have the exception. So some of the common exceptions are arithmetic exceptions. Whenever the computer system while executing program code encounters arithmetic error like divide by 0, then it will throw arithmetic exception error or exception. It might happen that sometimes you are trying to refer the array element, and by specifying the index, and you have specified the index very far from the limit of an array, maybe less than 0 or greater than value of n or upper limit of an array, then it will generate array index out of bound exception. Sometimes you are trying to store a character array into the integer array, fine, so incompatible data type, so array store exception. Or sometimes you are trying to retrieve a file which does not exist at all, then you will find the file not found exception. Okay, and I exceptions are exceptions that are caught using the IO activities. So all these exceptions are stored in the java.lang. Okay, under lang package, I repeat, under lang package, all the exceptions are defined. So the proper example of try catch block is this. So there is a class error3, okay, and there is a main program. There are three variables a, b, and c with 10, 5, and 5 respectively, and x and y respectively as the output variables. A, B, C are the input variables, X and Y are the output variables where we will be storing the result. Now suppose you want to perform some calculations. Okay, so X formula you are going to use it as X equals to A divided by B minus C, and Y formula you are going to use it as A divided by B plus C. Now it is very obvious that whatever may be the value of A, B and C, it is not going to create any kind of error or runtime error. Okay, but however in this expression, if B and C are different values, then it will not create any kind of exception. But if B and C are same, then it may. Okay, if B and C are different, then it will not create any kind of error. But if B and C are having the same value, then it will create a error. Okay, arithmetic exception error, or divide by 0. So this is a suspicious statement, so you keep such kind of a statement in the try block. Okay, and if there is different value for B, very good. Okay, X will have some value and this catch block will not get executed. But if B and C is having the same value, then arithmetic exception will be caught by the try block. Object will be created, object will be thrown as E to the arithmetic exception class, and which will display some message, right? So this is all about the try block. Okay. Now if you see the execution of the statement, so first initialization will be done, reserving of the memory will be done, then try block will be executed. Since B and C is having the 5 value, okay, B and C is having the 5 value, so exceptions is caught out here, and you will see some message divide by 0. Okay, then after that Y equals to A divided by B plus will get executed, and Y will also get printed. Now this is the effect of exception handling program. You've seen that although there was some problem with this statement and it has been caught, still the rest of the statement was executed. This two statement was executed. So this is possible only when you write down the program in this way, in this exception handling way. Okay, so this is the advantage of exception handling program. Right? Now, in this example, you have seen only one catch block. Suppose you are not sure about different kind of exception. So, say for example, this statement might encounter exception, arithmetic exceptions, or array out of bound, or any other. Okay, if you are not sure about what are the different, or if you are sure about the possibility variety of exception that it might encounter, then you can have multiple catch block. So E1 is the exception pertaining to one exception, maybe arithmetic expression, arithmetic calculations, and E2 may be array out of box of another maybe file, or another maybe IO. So you can have multiple catch block. Okay, so for multiple catch block, you can see example, there is int A equals to 0 and B equals to 42 by A. Okay, divide by A. So you might encounter this arithmetic exception. Okay, this divide by 0 situation or any other situations. Okay, so you can have multiple number of catch, okay, based on the situations or based on your assumptions. If you are sure that okay, these are the list of exceptions that you might encounter, then you can list several different catch. Next is the final block. Now final block is just basically used in a situation where you want the code has to be executed mandatorily after the try block. So this is the syntax. Okay, this is the syntax where you put the suspicious statement or the monitor statement that you want to monitor in the try block, list of catch, and the block of code, executable code that you want to execute properly. Okay, after the try block ends. So we put that kind of code in the finally block. Now this is the last topic under today's lecture, user defined exception. User defined exception is very important. User defined exception is very important because you are trying to extend the you are trying to customize the message that is given by the that has to be given by the program. Let us consider a scenario. Suppose you have written this program and you have tried to execute this program. Now when you try to execute after compilation of this program, you try to execute this program. When you execute this program, it will generate this kind of error. Okay, java.lang.arithmetic exception colon divide by 0 at error to main. Okay, so here the message is generated automatically. Now you want to customize this message of your own language, in your own language, then that is possible in when you write down the user defined exceptions. Okay, so how do I write down the user defined exception? There is something called exception class inside the lang folder. There is something called exception class in the lang folder that you need to extend it, or that you need to derive it. Okay, and create another class. After deriving the you have to derive a exception class, and inside the derived class you have to mention some informations. Okay, or you have to customize your message. So that's the basic principle of how to create a user defined exception. So user defined exception can be created by extending or by deriving the exception class. Now where is that exception class located? Exception class is located in this hierarchy. So this hierarchy there is a package called lang. Okay, under package you have object and you have a throwable class. Inside throwable class you will find exception class as well. Now this exception class has to be extended. This exception class throwable, I rewritten the same thing over here. There is something called throwable class that exists under the lang package. So this under this throwable class, okay, the exception class is the derived class of the throwable class. I repeat, exception class is the derived class of the throwable class, which means that throwable class is the parent class and exception class is child class. Now furthermore, to have a user defined function, you have to extend this or derive this exception class in the my exception. Okay, so like this you can create the user defined exception. You'll understand more if you see the examples. The syntax is throw new throwable subclass. So again, syntax also you'll understand better if you see the example. Okay. So as I told you just now that there is something called throwable class. Okay, there is something called throwable. So let us see the content of throwable. So the content of throwable is something here. Okay, so there is a string, a message. There is a string MSG. Now this block is known as a constructor that will initialize this MSG, whatever it receives in the parameter. It's a kind of a parameterized constructor. Then after that there is a method. Okay, there is a method which can be accessed from anywhere else in the program because it has been declared as public, and it will return a message. So whatever this constructor initializes this instance variable of throwable class, that it will return it. Okay. So this is the content of throwable, that is this. Now let us check on what is the content of exception. Now the content of the exception is there is only one parameterized constructor. Again it will further receive it. So basically exception class will receive some message from somewhere else, maybe an object. Exception class will receive a message, okay, in the constructor. That message is thrown to here. So from here the message will go to string MSG of throwable constructor, which will further initialize the instance variable. So this message gets initialized from exception to throwable. Okay, so let us try to see how can we do it. Okay, or how can we create it. So whatever you see, this already exists in the system. So how do we modify the content of MSG? Okay. So say for example, as I told you that to create the user defined function you have to extend or derive the exception class. Let us derive the exception class. So my exception extend exception. So this exception is already existing. You're deriving this class. Okay, so you have derived this class. Now inside which you have a constructor. Now I'm assuming you will get some message, some string over here in this here, and you will create you will invoke the super message. Now when you invoke, or when the computer system or when the processor execute the super message, okay, super MSG, super is the keyword that is used to initialize the superclass reference variable. Okay, so super, when you execute this, whatever message is received here, that will be passed on to this location. Again, this will pass on to this location, and further at the end the message will be initialized in instance variable of throwable. Okay, so now main class. Okay, my class, there is a main class, so where there are some variables and you have checked 10 is less than 20. Yes, true. So throw is the keyword, new my exception. So you have invoked the class, okay, by, or you have created the object of this class my exception by supplying some string. So x is less than wrong will get initialized in this MSG of a string of my exception variable, which will further throw, or will further pass on this string onto exception, and this exception will further pass on the same message to string of throwable, and further throwable will initialize the instance variable, MSG instance variable. Okay, so at the end, when this statement gets executed, okay, if this condition is true, this statement gets executed, and when this statement gets executed, an object will be created. While creating the object, you will try to initialize the string from here to this message, from this message to exception message, okay, and from exception message to throwable message, from throwable message to MSG of instance variable of throwable. Okay, now at the end of that statement, MSG contains what? X is less than this string. MSG contains x is less than y is wrong. Okay, this string is now initialized in this MSG of throwable class. Okay, now you know that inside throwable class you have a get message. So if you try to access this, it will return that same string. So it's done same out here. Okay, if try block is executed properly, an encounterment of exception, very true, that object will be thrown out here in the catch block in the form of the E. Now E is the name of the object that has been created, and with the help of which this string has been initialized in the MSG of throwable class. Then using e.getMessage, you are trying to retrieve this message from throwable class. So that's how you can customize your own message. Okay, the another examples could be my exception extends exception. So you have a message over here. Okay, so this is very common. So the most important statement is here. How do you invoke this class? Okay, so using the throw new my exception. So with the help of the new, you all know that we can create the object. So this statement creates the object, because if you see our basic syntax also, okay, exception object creator. So try block. So try block will create the object. So try block will create the object based on this value of the true. If this condition is true, the this statement will create the object. Now while creating the object, you try to initialize the MSG of throwable through my exception, and then to exception, and then to throwable. So like that it will go. Then when you try to display the message using e.getMessage, the same message will get displayed on the output screen. So that's how we can have the own message. Okay, so that's all for today. I hope we had made it clear. So just to brief you what we have done in today's session, we have understood the basic concept of the error and different types of error, and we have understood what is an exception, what happens when an exception is encountered, different types of common examples of exceptions, some keywords used to write down the exception handling program, and advantage of exception handling program. So this is the syntax we have understood. The example, okay, these are the examples, and we have also seen that we can have multiple catch and the uses of finally block, and we have seen how to create the user defined function by extending the exception class, which falls under the throwable class, and everything falls under the lang. Okay, your throwable class, exception class, and all exception common exceptions falls under the lang. packets. Okay, thank you so much. If you have any questions, please do post.